The Annual Sacrifice of the Richest Man by Thorsten Nesch. A dystopian novel, but only for the top 1%. There will be a need for radical change. If we, the enlightened people, don't do it, sorry, then the true right-wingers will do it. Slavoj Žižek, philosopher. Chapter 1. Heavens looked over at Amy, who stood already on his tiny balcony, still like a statue. Not even her high-strung ponytail moved. Her silhouette was almost black, despite her colorful outfit. She lived in a basement apartment, and whenever they went to his place, she aimed straight for the balconette, especially during the day after college. Standing in the kitchen corner on the other end of the studio apartment, he couldn't take his eyes off of her, wondering if he would remember this moment later in life, in a month, a year, when he was old. The boiling water in the kettle bubbled into his attention. He asked her, "Peppermint or Pico?" Without turning around or lifting her hands off the railing, she said, "Peppermint." A loud bicycle bell mixed with the noise from a street 4 floors below almost drowned her answer. Heavens didn't quite understand peppermint. It was just not Pico. With his thumb he threw a tea bag in each cup and poured hot water into them. The smell of mint filled the air. Although Heavens took a fresh spoon from the drawer, he inspected it for its cleanliness before he gave each tea bag 3 dabs. A minute will do. He didn't want to leave her any longer alone there. What was she thinking? Although she was a rather extroverted person, chatting easily with everyone, she often comfortably embraced the silence between him and her. Twice he asked her if something was wrong, and both times she shook her head, the second time asking back why he would think that. He began to appreciate these quiet moments between them. They brought a different quality to their relationship. He had lost track of time. How long was he daydreaming by now? It had been more than a minute, right? The tea should be ready. With a spoon he scooped the tea bags into the recycle bin. Holding both cups in one hand, he had to step over their backpacks to cross his slim 1-room studio apartment, the size of a shoebox, for one shoe, he often joked. A half-bedroom apartment was another slang term. "Your tea," he said. She swung around, took the cup in both hands and leaned with her back in one corner of the balconette. He could have squeezed himself next to her. "Thank you," she blew on the tea. She always did. Close to the open door, the fresh November air let the steam rise from their cups. Heavens leaned with his shoulder against the wall. The overcast sky blanketed her face in a soft light, and her way too large green sweater with the yellow brontosaurus print with "I'll be back" written underneath, and the red tie-dye ruffle hem skirt exhaled the patchouli from the incense sticks she constantly burned at her home. A strand of hair fell down into her face. She did nothing against it, as if she didn't notice it, or her hands were glued to the cup. The corners of her mouth twitched. He smiled and reached slowly out with his hand before he carefully laid the hair behind her ear. That's how they met. They small-talked, and he ran out of things to say when a strand of hair landed in front of her face, and she didn't do anything about it. He wondered why, and she teased him. If he doesn't like it, He should do something about it. And so he did. They both smiled. She briefly turned her head away, and then, between two blows on the hot tea, with her head slightly tilted down, that her eyes looked at him like a predatory cat in the jungle, she said, "When are we moving together?" Heavens blew on his tea to win some time for his answer. They've been a couple for over 5 months, and this question came up naturally, and recently more often, jokingly and seriously. This time, clearly the latter, an idea he had nothing against at all, but the practicalities didn't seem promising. They both lived in a single studio apartment, one-room dwellings meant to provide shelter and a place to prepare food for one person, not much else. Some couples could swap their single mattress for a double and give half their clothes away, and voila, they could live together, if you want to call it that, on 170 square feet. For Amy and Heavens, this was not an option in his studio. A double mattress would touch the desk on the other side with no space left for the chair and blocking the balcony door. In her basement studio, a double mattress would fit if they moved the round table aside, but it was in a basement without a window, and she wanted to get out of that studio as much as he didn't want to move in there. He stayed there a few times overnight, and he never got used to not seeing the light of the day. He called it the submarine. You didn't see the outside, and you only heard what went on inside the building. People talking, screaming, appliances rumbling, the animals in the dry walls. Amy moved her little ears, and the hair fell back into her face. They both laughed. "What did you do that for?" he asked as soon as he could. "Just so." "Since when can you move your ears?" "I saw it in a show last week. An actor did it. I had to try it right away and ran to the mirror. And I could do it." Her hands became unglued, and she rested one hand on the railing, the other hand still holding the tea. "Silly," he said, and laid the hair back behind her ear before he addressed the ear by pointing at it. "Don't do that again." They kissed, both fighting a smile what only made them smile more. On the street, an EV swooshed by. Someone yelled they shouldn't drive that fast. The tea had cooled down, ready to drink. Since the city added vitamins and minerals to the tap water, he wondered if it tasted different, even the tea. Heaven said, "To get back before you derailed our conversation, Whoa, what? When did I derail our conversation?" she asked back. "When you were being you." "Me being me?" "Yeah, you know." "No, I don't know, Hev." "Well, you all looking the way you do, doing what you do. Okay. Not much I can do about that, but sorry for the derailment," she said. "Please continue our convo." And to underline the end of her argument, she took a long sip from her tea. "We both established that our studios are out of question to move together." "I guess, yes," she said, "we established that. So then, let's..." He involuntarily dragged out the words and the spaces between them. Maybe he wasn't too sure about the move himself. "Let's check if we can find a double." She propelled forward into bear-hugging him. In doing so, she spilled some of her tea, and he spilled some of his. Behind him, Heavens heard her cup landing on the desk before she darted to her backpack, pulling out her D9 and plopping down on the bed. "I already saved some doubles in my search history." "You're not prepared at all," he commented, and lowered his voice a bit to quote, "Oh, wait, You really want to do this? I thought this was just a joke, Anne. Her tea had become an afterthought. He sat down beside her, drinking tea from his red cup that read, "No brain, no pain," while she woke up her device, mumbling through the mandatory 9-step verification, starting with pressing her thumb onto the screen, then her forehead, followed by the 13-digit code of numbers, letters, at least 3 unconnected, capitalized, and 4 special characters. Identify 2 similar shapes. Next. Turn animal circles into correct shape. That was tricky last time. Took me... not now. Next, click all conservative faces. 3 out of 6. 1, 2, 3. This is always easy. 40-year-olds marred by bitterness, a lack of laugh lines, and a face expression of youth wasted and someone never been truly loved by no one. That was harsh. Oh, right, and harsh, she said. No, I meant your judgment. Amy ignored what he said and switched back to mumbling. Now the selfie. And she stretched her arms out with a D9 in the middle until the flashlight flickered. On the screen she read, "Picture blurred, please retry, no smile, hold device still." Fantastic. She repeated the step and moved on to, "Say loud and clear, the D9 is the safest device on Earth." Meaning there are safer ones out there somewhere in the universe, Heavens commented. Psst. Amy swiped the symbol to open the D9 email inbox over the screen so she could press the link for the biometric authentication. On the side of the device, she fished the tiny half-inch knife out of the slot and quickly cut off a piece of her hair. She put the blade back into its place and inserted her hair in the bio opening on top of her device. "Welcome to your D9, she said. Heavens wanted to take another sip of tea, but the cup was empty. "What did I want to do?" "I wanted to show you something, right?" Amy asked. "Yeah, you developed a new kissing technique based on the French..." Ouch! She had slapped his arm and remembered. "The doubles, the doubles that I have saved." Their heads rested on the blanket and the pillow piled up against the wall. Amy held her D9, while Heavens swiped from one open double apartment for rent to the next, grunting or sighing here and there. "I like that one," she said, pointing at a brand new 2-bedroom in one of the recently finished towers in downtown. "Sure, but the rent." He checked another one and said, "Same here, Amy, all doubles are beyond what we can afford." She let her arm with the device sink onto her leg. Their parents weren't able to help them financially. They were all receiving basic income. He continued, "If we would have not done the trip to Medicine Hat last month, we could have at least have enough for a damage deposit, and we might..." No. Medicine Hat was fun," she said. "Yeah, it was. Even if we would have taken the bus instead of renting an EV for the week. No, we would have not seen half of Hat. Their river valley is so much better than ours. More nature and... the Sacrifice app starts today. Did you update yours?" "Yep." It was the first thing he had done in the morning before breakfast. "Me too," she said. "Maybe we luck out and land an early windfall." She opened the Sacrifice app. Even from his position, he could see that her wallet didn't have any incoming money transfers. The muted white numbers were clearly readable against the rust-red color of the background. In contrast to all the other apps, this one wasn't cluttered with functions and advertisement. There was your balance on top, from where you could either transfer to your linked online payments account or you could pay directly with it, and then there were the 2 columns underneath, for payments received and payments made, where you could choose to display the year, month, week, day, and, closer to December 21st, the deadline for all financial donations, by hour and down to the minute, because it got quite rowdy towards the end. I didn't get zapped yet. Don't you want to check yours? She asked. The first weeks are always very slow every year, not much happening. And right now, I don't want to fire up my D. I am comfortable here. Well, there is the off chance I'll check later, Amy. She sat up and put her D9 asleep. I better go now before it's getting dark. What? You can stay. He hoped his disappointment wasn't too audible. She smiled over her shoulder for a moment longer than necessary, as if she wanted to give him the chance to take a memory snapshot. Then she stood up. I got stuff to do. Stuff? Yeah. What stuff? College? Social? I need to skip through my last batch of photos. Otherwise I lose track. Yeah, oh yeah. He scratched his chin. Staying with heavens, having dinner together, a glass of wine, or being alone in my dark basement with blurred-out photos. What will I decide? What will Amy? Her foot landed against his knee. Ow, he exaggerated. Why are you hitting me all the time? She stepped to her backpack and tucked her device in. Because you deserve it all the time? He got up and closed the balcony door. The apartment building on the other side also had 5 floors. They tore down the entire street and rebuilt it in the same fashion, transforming what used to be a row of bungalows, duplexes, and townhouses into a row of 5-story apartment buildings, and a few years ago they divided each apartment into 2 studios. The rent didn't slash in half. An empathy drone zipped by, and a pigeon landed on the gutter across the street. Some people could watch these birds and find an inner peace. Heavens felt the opposite. They made him nervous, with their jerking heads, constantly afraid to be attacked or eaten by cats or falcons. Hey, hollered Amy behind him. Dreamer? Huh? You sometimes space out. Where were you? There was, did you say something? I was asking you something, yes. She wore her backpack over her shoulder, stamped her hands on her hips, and laid her head to the side, pouting. Now he noticed she had also slipped into her shoes. You look great, he said. Her head snapped all the way back, and she made half to the ceiling. The brontosaurus on her chest might have sounded similar. She held the gesture. He liked her neck. The friendship necklace they both wore was hidden underneath her sweater. He tried again. Can I walk you home? Hallelujah! Her face appeared again. On their way out, the two ran into Heaven's neighbor Verrill. They came home from their work at the kitchen tools and appliances share shop 1 block down south at the college mall. As usual, Verrill carried a box underneath their arm, bringing home some mixer or special calendar or whatever they just needed to cook a meal that evening. Heavens opened the door for them from the inside. Hi, how's it going? Heavens asked. Not bad, not bad, not bad. They looked up and turned their heads so they could see the spot where they received stitches at the hospital after a drone hit them last month. My hair grew almost back. And yourselves? All right. Zapped yet? No, both said. Hey, have you heard? Our species split some decades ago. No, Heaven said. They can't nail the exact year, but they said Homo sapiens sapiens split. There's now a Homo sapiens conservativensis. I haven't noticed. How would we? You think Homo neanderthalensis noticed it, or sapiens sapiens back then? I bet they were just like, oh, they're getting a little weird. I can see that, Amy asked. Where did you hear that? A woman with a chart on zigzag in the science section. Wow, Heaven's mate. Anyway, they said, I don't want to keep you guys. Thanks, thanks. Viral nodded to the door and shimmied by them. See ya. Outside, Amy opened her hair, shook it, and set her orange beanie on. It's not that cold, Heavens commented, more to say something. Not that warm either, and she grabbed his hand. Together they marched down the sidewalk until they turned south on Mayor McGrath Boulevard, where the EVs drove in their designated middle lanes, flanked by public transit and service lanes, the bicycle lanes, and finally the sidewalks. The constant buzzing of the drones above, flying south and north, completed the apparent hectic during their evening rush hour. Pointing at one of the many apartment buildings along the wide road, Amy wondered, how can anybody live right here? Don't they hear the noise? Maybe they like it. Stella didn't like it. She moved out after 3 months. I bet many stay. We just don't know them. There might be a reason. Wait. She dropped his hand and fished her device out of her backpack. Heavens knew what would come, and he took a step behind Amy so he won't be in her way. She turned on the camera mode, aimed at the crowds and vehicles on and above the boulevard, and said, I swear, the day I need to verify my identity to take a picture on this is the day I will go crazy. I wouldn't say that too loud. And then she started her ICM dance, as he called it. While taking pictures, she yanked the device to the left or to the right, depending what she saw and what kind of effect she was going for. Sometimes she tilted the camera as if turning off a hot shower. The results of her ICM, the intentional camera movement photography, resembled at worst the attempts of a toddler and at best oil paintings of the great masters. But those were far and few between. Some people watched her, trying to find an explanation for her action, looking at him for the same thing. Most of the times he shrugged. Other people stopped their walk or even their biking, so they wouldn't cross in front of her, although she secretly would love that, as it could add to the composition. Seldom somebody struck up a conversation with her. These turned often into monologues, and she could go on until the person excused themselves, because Amy could talk forever about ICM. Heaven stuck his hands in his pants and waited for his girlfriend to be done. Finally, she left her photo stance, relaxed, and stuffed the D back where it belonged. Satisfied? He asked. You know, I only know for sure when I'm home and checking the pics. Over the course of a week, she would snap an average of 500 pictures. Sometimes she didn't keep any. In a good week, it could be 3. Will these make the batch today? He asked. Oh, for sure. Also for your exhibition? In February, the Café Troy on 5th would showcase her work for the entire month. No, I'm down to 13 pictures. 8 I need. To drop 5 will be hard. I don't know. He pondered for a moment before suggesting, maybe some sell and you replace them. If they sell, people don't just take them home that day. They can pick them up when the exhibition is over, and then I get paid. At the bustling Value Mall, they turned left and walked east. After half a block, the Mayor McGrath noise was gone, the street grew quieter, and everybody seemed to walk slower, move slower. She grabbed his hands again. What do you do when you get home? Laundry. Have. And social. I'll read an essay. I listened to it while assessing my pictures, she said. You can do that? Not many ears involved in photography. I mean multitasking. That's a big word for making rather quick visual choices paired with the monotonous AI voice of a social science reader app, and the prof didn't hint in any way what is relevant for the exam. Maybe I should also listen to it. And do what parallel? Fall asleep.